Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Higurashi. It's your boy Karagol Gaming, and you know how we do things around here. Chapter 7 of Arc 3 is what awaits us. Let's get it. Satoko. I went home and washed the day's sweat off in the shower. Normally, I could reset everything by taking a shower and forgetting all the bad things. But that didn't happen today. I got out of the shower to find fresh underwear placed neatly in the laundry basket. Normally, I didn't stop to think about it, but today, I felt happy at my mother's consideration. At the same time, however, it made me realize how much Satoko must be suffering. At the very moment I was appreciating this gentle kindness, Satoko might be being bruised by her uncle's cruel words. I went up to the second floor and shut myself in my bedroom. Then, facing my desk, I folded my arms. My topic of thought, of course, was Satoko. We had thought that if we could just get a public agency to intervene in the right way, the problem would be solved. But with what Coach said, I didn't think it would be so easy. Satoko was obstinate, and she would stubbornly deny the abuse and try to endure it. And that was an act of atonement towards Satoshi, who had protected her before and then run away. And as long as she thought that way, the situation wouldn't be so simple. But earlier, before Coach, I made a clear declaration. If I thought Satoko was in danger, then I would have to do what I had to do. In the end, that meant I was just going to wait and see too. Nevertheless, I thought I had drawn a clearer line than Coach or my friends had. If the time came, I would report it. Over the phone. Given Satoko's personality, she might criticize me if she found out, but I believed it was ultimately the best decision. Wait, Keiichi Maibara? Would that really be all it took for the problem to end? Say that I reported it to a public agency, right? Like the Child Consultation Center. What if they stuck their wait-and-see attitude like last year again? Last year, they decided to do just that, and the situation improved temporarily. But then the aunt, thinking herself a laughingstock, increased her tormenting in secret. In the end, things became more and more underhanded than before. This year, it was her uncle. I had just seen him for the first time today, but the man seemed much more direct, much more violent than the word underhanded could imply. It wasn't like their aunt, nah, not that subtle. He was more direct. He might also assault her with punches and kicks. That could easily be discerned from the bruises and such I saw on Satoko's body. Shit, you're too naive, Keiichi Maibara. However heroic it may seem to report what was happening, if it doesn't save her, then it doesn't mean shit. Reporting things to a public agency was only one option, and leaving everything to them would be dangerous. We would need something more to guarantee Satoko's safety. I scratched madly at my head, thinking, then tilted it back, wanting at least a little bit of calm. The memories of angry arguing with my friends came to mind today. I was embarrassed that I hadn't realized it until Rena had said something. She was right. My house is big. Compared to all the houses with the straw-thatched roofs in Hinamizawa, it was really big. We did actually have empty rooms. I've never thought that we were affluent, but also never that we were poor. I just didn't admit it because people would think I was arrogant. But maybe my family really is wealthy. We had a few rooms we could lend to Satoko. The guest rooms are only in use when people related to my dad's job come and stay every once in a while. Plus, if we clean up a few of the rooms my dad uses for storage, they could work for her as well. As for the food expenses, that might have been a more serious problem than a kid like me could imagine. Lunch every day would be manageable. All of our friends would just have to bring a little bit more for lunch than they usually did. With everyone picking at everyone else's food anyway, it would be manageable. For breakfast and dinner though, that would have to be up to Mom. I would need to convince her to lend Satoko more than just a room. Of course, I don't even think convincing her of that would be easy. About how much did it cost for one person to eat? How many tens of thousands of yen per month? They couldn't complain about it if I shouldered that, could they? I only had 10 or 20,000 yen in savings, but it was something. I actually had even more, thanks to New Year's gifts and such, but my parents had taken all that and put it into a fixed time deposit. If I could get access to that, it should add up to a lot of money. And if I got that far, I should ask Mio and Rena to share some of the burden. Of course, I wouldn't depend on that. Rena got mad at me, didn't she? About how I shouldn't shove responsibility onto others? I would have to ask for help. Even so, I would be basically saving her myself. I would follow through on it. But it wouldn't be only food expenses. There were a lot of other things that you couldn't do without, like baths and laundry. My mother was awfully methodical and strict about cutting out inefficiencies, and for once, that was troublesome. She might even make reference to the money it would cost for the detergent Satoko would use for her own clothes. I couldn't think only about food expenses. I needed more money. Hey, wait, Keiichi Maibara. Since when was all this about money? Even if you could afford it, you would still need your parents' permission first. They would be looking after a young girl for a really long time. What would I say to persuade them? Just calm down a bit, Keiichi Maibara, and you will realize right away that you can't. Even if you ask them seriously, they will tell you to call the police. Even if you manage to gain their empathy, why should the Maibara family have to shoulder all of the burden by itself? That's what would happen. That was it. It was very sad and frustrating, but no matter how much I wanted to help, my resolution alone couldn't save shit.
そんなにも子供って無力なのかよ。
I felt frustrated. I believed my feelings were stronger than anyone else's. I even thought they were stronger than Coach's. And yet, at that point, there were 2 knocks at my door, and my mom poked her head inside.
起きてたの？さっきからご飯ってずっと呼んでるわよ。
あ、うん。今行く。
As someone financially dependent on his parents, I shouldn't say this, but I just sat around doing nothing and food suddenly appeared. It felt so natural to me that I shamelessly thought of it as a responsibility of the parents who gave birth to me. But when I realized that natural thing was actually a right, I came to realize just how hard it was to grant that privilege to others. Even the boring meal in front of me, no better than it ever was, had more meaning than that tonight. There was food for 3 on the table right now, for Dad, for Mom, and for me. I couldn't imagine how hard it would be to add another place at the table. Think, Keiichi Maibara. If it was hard to make food for 4, then just think about how 4 people could eat food made for 3. Oh. I changed around the way I thought, and with that I began to consider an unthinkably bold plan. That's right. I didn't need to get my parents' permission. She should just live here in secret. I got upset when I found out a while ago, but if I remembered right, if you climbed out the window then shimmied down the first floor roof or gutter, you could go in and out of the house directly from my room. Satoko's physical ability far surpassed my own, so it would be even easier for her. I hadn't even thought about it, but her living here secretly was actually a necessity. I would only have to bring Satoko to my house when the public agencies said they would wait and see. In other words, if Satoko's uncle continued to be her guardian. If, in such a situation, word got out that she was here, her uncle would barge in and drag Satoko back with him. Her uncle was her rightful guardian, so my parents would have to hand her over without an argument, no doubt. So, I needed to keep it a secret that she was living here. If it needs to be a secret, then having my parents' help would mean a lot, but you gotta deceive your allies first, like they always say. Who the fuck said this? Tekashi69? Okay. Persuading my parents was an unrealistic proposition, so I'll search for a way to have her living here in secret. When I was around, she would just have to be really quiet in my room on the second floor. The issue was the daytime. If she was hiding from her uncle, then she shouldn't go to school. It might be lonely, but not going would be the better option. I could easily teach Satoko the stuff she learns in her grade. Actually, during school, I mostly help all the younger kids out rather than study my own stuff. During the day, I would need to go to school, so I wouldn't be at home. My parents respected my privacy now that I was this age, so they wouldn't go snooping around in my room while I was gone, I think. If she holed herself up in my room, it would be okay, right? If my parents did come, thanks to where the second floor was, she could hear their approach from the sound of them coming up the stairs. And there would be a little bit of time before they got all the way up. I estimated a few seconds, that she would be able to hide herself in the closet. Wait, Keiichi. Something doesn't make sense here. If she can't go to school, then what will she do for lunch? Calm down already. I could just leave her my own lunch, couldn't I? I should just go to school without lunch and get everyone else to split theirs with me. Okay, that's good. No more contradictions or oversights, right? Oh, breakfast and dinner. I could somehow get her to go without breakfast. The fucking best meal of the day or the most necessary meal of the day, bro? I can go with 2 meals a day when I sleep in on Sundays after all. Every night, I would pretend as though I had a bigger appetite and ask for a bigger helping. And then, I could just somehow give part of that to Satoko. As a test, I stood up from my seat with my plate of fish in my hands.
どうしたのケイチ。ご飯は座って食べなさい。
うん。ちょっと気分が変えたくなってさ。自分の部屋で食べてもいいかな。
ボロボロ落として汚すぞ。食事は食卓で食べなさい。
うん。ごめん。
Hey, wait. I only tried to take away 1 plate of fish and they ganged up on me? In reality, it was impossible for me to smuggle food away without my parents knowing about it. But it must have been worth taking the time to think about. There must be some trick, some method to avoid them realizing. Even if I can't think of one today, I might think of one tomorrow. My appetite was rapidly fading, so I finished early and went back to my room. I went back there and tried to think about it from Satoko's point of view. For example, let's say my parents were coming up the stairs right now. I've got to hide. I opened the closet. Clatter, clatter. It didn't open quietly. Hey, wait. Didn't it always open real smooth and quiet? Why was it suddenly doing this now? Was this house even structurally safe? Was it already showing signs of dilapidation? Or were the hinges just not greased well enough? Could I just apply some lubricating wax? The sound itself may have been soft, but it left me uneasy as to whether my parents would detect it happening when they climbed up the stairs. But this was an easy problem. I could do something about it. I just had to fix it up a little so it didn't make noise anymore. For now, I will close myself in the closet as though I had successfully hid. I basically left my futon out on the floor. I couldn't think of any real reason my parents would want to go into my closet. Even so, there might be some reason they would. I might need to construct some sort of camouflage so that she wouldn't be noticed even if they did open it. But the more she worried about that, the less time she would have to actually hide, meaning it would be more likely that they would hear a noise. And then, suddenly, I had to go to the bathroom. The bathroom? The need to use the toilet, so obvious and such a fatal flaw. The only bathroom was on the first floor. It would be absolutely impossible for her to use it without my family realizing. I might need to set up a portable toilet like a chamber pot, I guess. Bro, what? Satoko would hate it, so she could only go in my room. But the stench would be pretty terrible. Anyone sensitive would probably notice the smell without even coming into my room. The bath was okay though. She could just take a bath when my parents were out. But I couldn't do anything about the toilet. When her stomach started to hurt, if my parents were lazing around downstairs, she would be in trouble. It was then I noticed that I had been clawing at my head with both hands. I sat down in the dark closet with my knees against my chest. I buried my face in them and tore at my hair. The more I thought, the more contradictions popped up. The more I thought, the more things failed. And the more I worried, the more I was reminded of how little power I actually had. My back started to hurt from staying in a cramped place for so long. But if I was to shelter Satoko, I would need to force her to feel this pain. Bro. To live in such a dark, narrow, suffocating place forever. But it would still be better than being abused by her uncle, or so I wanted to think. It got hard to breathe, so I gave in and crawled out of the closet. I looked at the clock, and to my surprise, it was 3:30 in the morning. It had felt like so little time, but it was so unbelievably long. When I realized that, I was slapped with a terrible urge to sleep, as if the time had only just caught up with me. I didn't have enough strength to fight it, and I fell flat onto my futon. Shit, I can't just go to sleep like this. If I waste any time, that'll mean I'm taking the same wait-and-see attitude that Mion and Coach and everyone else did. I needed to keep worrying about how to rescue Satoko for a minute, or even a second longer than everyone else. Isn't there a better way? Isn't there a better way? That one phrase I spoke to myself swirled around and around in a spiral, and steadily took over my entire mind. For my last moment of consciousness, I thought, there were a lot of blind spots in what I had considered tonight, but I absolutely wasn't wrong for having those ideas. Tomorrow, I would suggest this bold plan to the others. Mion might be able to help somehow, and Rena was really sharp, so she might have a good suggestion. And above all, we needed to rescue Satoko once again, with everyone helping out. I felt pathetic for letting myself fall asleep. I'm sorry, Satoko. The ceiling blurred into view. It was hot. There was a thin layer of moist sweat on me. The voices of the cicadas permeating my room were somehow grating to my head.
今日日曜日じゃないよな。
I remember that today was a weekday and quickly brought myself to consciousness. And then, finally, I leaped out of bed. The clock read a little bit before 10. I was totally late. When I wandered downstairs, my mom would get mad at me. There was nothing I could do though. After reviewing the schedule for the school day for a moment, I suitably rearranged the stuff in my bag. I hurried and got dressed, then went down the stairs. There was no sign of my parents anywhere. Maybe they went out somewhere together. So that's how it was. My mother had probably woken me up this morning, but then I fell back asleep without remembering it. And my parents, thinking I had gone to school, left. Something like that probably happened. I went to the front door, and as I expected, it was locked. Looked like I was right. It was further evidence of my speculation being correct. When I had realized my parents weren't here, I suddenly felt less like I had to rush to get to school. There was one portion of breakfast left in the dining room, probably mine. The milk they poured in it had gone warm since a while ago. When I realized how hard it would be to sneak food for Satoko, yesterday I had cried. Well, thinking back on it, food wasn't the only issue in that regard. I wasn't in a position where I could care for Satoko by myself anyway. It's such a heavy thing to just save a single person. I had seen this on TV and comics all the time. Those feel-good words about how you will save your friends for sure and such. Was that why I ran my mouth like that, swearing to save her because I wanted to feel good about it? Nah, that absolutely wasn't true. Cause the fact was, I couldn't save her. because I didn't want to think like an adult, like I couldn't do anything but watch. Had Satoko gone to school today? I immediately realized that was a meaningless question. Whether or not she did, there wouldn't be a change in the environment she had been placed in. If I couldn't save her and no one else could either. Then we could only pray for a miracle.
俺たちは無力か。
With a vague goal of getting to school in mind, I sluggishly put on my shoes and stumbled out the front door. I had only overslept by 2 or 3 hours, but the sunlight and air felt completely different from how they usually were in the morning. Well, of course they did. Once 10 o'clock came around, you could barely call it morning anymore. I didn't feel like walking the same old route to school. I needed to ultimately end up there, but it was like I didn't want to choose the shortest route, the most proactive one to get to school. Put in a more positive light, maybe I wanted some time to walk by myself and think. I had to go to school, partly to make sure Satoko was safe, but I hadn't come up with any plans yet. Nothing since last night. So the path I took from my house was in the complete opposite direction. If I went this way, I would pass Rena's house and the dam site. It would be quite a detour. I calculated how long of a detour it would end up being, then satisfied with the answer, I started to walk. Rena had brought me to the dam site a few times. One section of it had turned into an unlawful, oversized garbage dump, and Rena really liked going fishing for junk in there. Without that, she had come off as a completely normal girl too, really. I can think of a few other qualities that she could do without, but whatever. The view quickly opened up wide, and I was hit by a strong wind. There was no other shelter here at this big dam site. Maybe it was a good thing I came here, though. At the very least, it was more healthy to think about stuff in a place like this instead of my cramped up bedroom. I took a deep breath and filled my lungs with the rich cold air unique to Hinamizawa. Ring ring, motherfucker. I turned around reflexively. It was a bicycle bell. Considering where I was standing, I didn't think they were trying to get me out the way. They had ring the bell because they wanted something from me. Hey, excuse me, I don't have a voice actor. You're from Hinamizawa, right? Yes, why? Well, so what the fuck's happening? I've seen this person around a few times. Right, I remembered. His name, I think, was Tomitake, a freelance photographer who lived in Tokyo. He would zealously visit Hinamizawa every season to take pictures, or so Mion and the others told me, I think.
古出神社ってここからどう行けばいいか教えてもらえないかい？マップを宿に置いてきちゃったみたいでね。困ってたんだよ。
ここから神社ですか？
I knew where everything was in my head, but explaining how to get there was a different story altogether, let me tell you. I was a little irritated having been bothered for this, but when I realized it meant my detour actually meant something, that feeling faded quickly.
教えてもいいですけど、ちょっと口で説明するのは難しいですよ。一緒でよければ連れて行ってあげますけど。
え？それはかたじけないね。助かるよ。あ、でもいいのかい？君の用事は。
Tomitake-san finally appeared to have realized how strange it was for a student like me to be here at this time of day. I smoothly told him not to worry about it, then turned my back and started walking towards the Furude shrine. Tomitake-san hurried to turn his bike around and came after me.
ごめんごめん、気にしないでくれよ。男には組織を離れて一匹狼になりたい時もあるんだからね。
What a free-minded freelancer. It was easier for me too that he was under that impression. I'm Tomitake, a freelance photographer. I specialize in wild birds and landscapes. I'm still pretty unknown though. It seemed absurd for him to introduce himself when I was just showing him to the shrine, but he gave me his name, so I needed to give mine back. I'm Maibara. Pleased to meet you, I guess. Maibara-kun? Pleased to meet you. He seemed like a pretty silly man, but that felt kinda good considering I had been suffocating with worry over Satoko all night. Along the way, Tomitake-san spoke at length to me about how precious the nature in Hinamizawa was and how it was a treasure trove of rare wild birds, despite my not having asked. I wasn't interested in what he had to say, but he seemed to be enjoying himself, so I left him to it.
この石段を上がれば神社の境内です。
ありがとう。助かったよ。ああ、ちょっと遅刻しちゃったかな。
As Tomitake-san mumbled to himself, he left his bicycle nearby and started to climb the stairs quickly. I didn't have a watch, but as far as my internal clock could guess, it was still a little late in the morning. School wasn't very far from here. Maybe I could kill a little bit more time until then. With that in mind, I went up the stairs in pursuit of Tomitake-san. When I reached the top of the long staircase, I arrived at the wide open shrine grounds that were too grand looking for this tiny village. Tomitake-san? Oh, there he is. It looked like he was supposed to be meeting someone here. Then he got lost and ended up being late. He was bowing to a lady who must have been the person he was meeting. That lady, I knew her.
あら、前原くんじゃない。こんにちは。今日は学校はお休みかしら？
あれ？なんだ、圭一くんついてきたのかい？
別にそんなつもりはないですよ。ただちょっと時間つぶしがしたかっただけです。
あらあら、重役出勤とは優雅なものね。さすがは有名人。今から大物ぶりを発揮してること。
What was I, a celebrity? Well, she did say my name out of nowhere anyway. I was oddly concerned about what she meant by famous.
あら、私の名前はまだ思い出せない？
Takano, right?
高野美代さんだよ。村の診療所に勤めてる。圭一くんは健康そうだから、あまり病院のお世話にはならないかな。
せっかくお知り合いになれたんだから、今度病気か何かできたら、ちょっぴりだけサービスし。
This lady named Takano-san, I kind of didn't remember her. Maybe we had passed each other on the street a few times, but I was pretty sure this was the first time we had talked. Well, this is Hinamizawa. Even if I don't know a person's name, it's not unusual for them to know mine. I glanced at Takano-san and saw she had a bag and a camera.
ひょっとして二人とも写真仲間ですか？あ、それで待ち合わせを。
仲間でなんてとんでもない。素人の私に二郎さんが優しくてほどきをしてくださるだけなのよ。ねえ。
そんなことないよ。高野さんは飲み込みが早いからね。僕の指導なんかなくても実に自由に撮影をこなすよ。本当さ。
I couldn't tell which of them was ahead in the conversation. Well, they were certainly one couple you wouldn't get tired of watching.
いよいよあさってが綿流しね。今年はいい写真が撮れるといいんだけど。
明日の設営シーンからレンズに収めるつもりだよ。そういう準備風景からもお祭りの活力を捉えたいんだ。
Oh, I just remembered. There was some village festival called Watanagashi or something the day after tomorrow on Sunday.
Hinamizawaの守り神、お社様に感謝するため、古い布団を積み重ねて供養する、そんなお祭りでしたっけ？
You just remembered, or were you blatantly told by them that it was in a couple of days?
あら、ごめん。前原くん、引っ越してきたばかりにしては博識ね。そう。お社様に感謝するためのお祭り。
Takano-san smiled somehow meaningfully, but didn't tell me what part of a festival to thank Oyashiro-sama needed to be laughed at.
やれやれ、高野さんは。でも、どうだろうね、今年は。
2度あることは3度ある。そしてもう4度あったのよ。 5度目がないと言える方が何の根拠もないと思うけれど。
I knew what they meant by their whispered exchange. On the day of Watanagashi, a freak death always occurs, which people call Oyashiro-sama's curse, and a disappearance occurs that people call being demoned away. These strange events had happened 4 years running, and Watanagashi, rapidly approaching the day after tomorrow, marked the 5th.
村の旧敵にたたりをなすお社様か。今年もあるとして、果たしてその矛を受けるのは誰になるだろうね。あ、僕はここに来るたびにちゃんとお参りして僕じゃないことは確かだよ。
あらそう。近年のお社様は異邦人には特に厳しいって話よ。引っ越してきたばかりとはいえ、前原くんはちゃんとhinamizawaに住んでる村人だけど、二郎さんは毎年来るだけのただのよそ者。さーて、今年は見逃してもらえるかしら。
ひどいな。
Tomitake-san was the only one with a pained grin, but we were all smiling, me included. Oyashiro-sama, the one who used the curse to kill people involved with the dam construction project, one after the next. He killed the dam construction manager, killed Satoko's parents for supporting it, and the next year, he even killed her aunt. If the demoning away was a part of that curse, then you could add Satoshi to the list of victims. As I thought about it, I realized that in the serial freak death incidents, the overwhelming majority had the last name Hojo. Half of the deaths and disappearances had come from the Hojo family. The Hojo family lived here in Hinamizawa. You got it, bro. Did that mean Oyashiro-sama punished and cursed them particularly harshly because despite that, they had been in favor of the dam?
サトコのおじが帰ってきたって話は聞いてますか？
Takano-san, who had been enjoying a few words with Tomitake-san, was caught unaware by my sudden inquiry.
あ、ごめんなさい。今なんて？
いえ、サトコの両親がたたり殺されて、おばもたたり殺されて、だったら順番的には次はおじの番かなって思ったんです。去年のたたりでおばが無残な死に方をし、それに恐れをなして町に逃げていたやつですよ。お社様は確か村を捨てて逃げ出そうとするのは許さなかったですよね。
I hadn't intended to be quite this persistent, but those words, they just flowed out of my mouth without me thinking about it. Right, Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't believe in something so unrealistic, of course, but the fact was that every year, unfortunate accidents and incidents happened to the enemies of the village. Like Takano-san just said now, it had happened 4 times. No one could say there wouldn't be a 5th.
ふーん、面白い説ね。確かに過去の犠牲者を見れば北条生が多いのは事実。その延長として考えれば、今年はおじが死ぬか消えるかする可能性は
もう高野さんは起こるかもしれない不幸を笑うのは良くないよ。
ごめんなさいね。でもお社様のたたりは私のライフワークだし。
What do you mean by that? Takano-san gave off a mysterious, somehow intellectual impression, and her life's work was mysterious in its own right. She probably really liked inexplicable supernatural phenomena or something.
高野さんはお社様のたたりに詳しそうですね。どうでしょう。北条の帰ってきたおじがたたりに会う可能性は。
あら何？そのおじさんを殺したくて仕方がないみたいね。
そんなんじゃないです。
どうだろうね。神様の気まぐれ次第だからね。
前原くん、サンタクロースの正体は知ってる？
Huh? I got a strange question all of a sudden, and I couldn't immediately answer.
なに、知らないの？
Thumbnail action much?
パパよ。みんなの家のパパ。
そういう意味ですか。そりゃそうですよ。どんなものの正体だって最終的には人間です。だってここは人間しかいない世界なんですから、全ての現象は人間で解明できるはずです。
Humans are the only ones living in the world. Is that a fact to you? I felt like I put that somewhat strangely, but Takano-san was not as dissatisfied with that reply as I might have guessed.
あら、その年齢のうちからそれに気づけるなんて。人間の世で起こる現象はすべて人間の都合で人間が起こす。では前原くん、今度はサンタクロースじゃなくてお社様。お社様のたたりの正体は何かわかるかしら？
Takano-san took a step towards me and gazed into my eyes as she asked. Santa Claus was really the parents of every family's children. If lionizing that legend was a corporate tactic to try and profit during Christmas sales, then what was Oyashiro-sama really?
あら、あなたが言ったのよ。ここは人間しかいない世界だって。すべての現象は人間で解明できるって。
圭一君、ここだけの話だよ。高野さんはね、お社様のたたりをめぐる一連の連続開始事件をね、Hinamizawaの村人が何かの儀式に基づいて行っている人為的殺人事件でないかと見ているんだよ。
誤解しないでね。私はそれに至る教義や思想、文化を民族学的見地から研究することがライフワークなの。別に犯人が誰かなんてことには全く興味がないのよ。
Oh, he doesn't have a PC sprite, I guess. Oh my god.
そこだけ勘違いしないでちょうだいね。
I could tell that she was only saying some crazy stuff. To use a food analogy, like you would force feed a duck to be fattened, she forced her words down my throat. That's what it felt like.
そもそもそれを理解するためには、Hinamizawa村が鬼ヶ淵村と呼ばれていた古代に鬼と血を交わらせたと信じる半人半鬼の仙人たちが。
Takano-san, having entered her home field, leaned forward and began to speak of ridiculous matters. Tomitake-san realized she was overawing me and interrupted for me.
高野さん、その話をいきなり圭一君にしても。ほら、彼も面食らってるよ。
あら、そう？続きに興味があったらいつでも言ってね。前原くんくらいの年頃の男の子が好きそうな猟奇的なお話がてんこ盛りなんだから。
ありがとうございます。気が向いたらそのうちに。
For now, I softly and safely gave my refusal. Takano-san seemed a little unhappy that Tomitake-san had rained on her parade, but she stopped talking about it then. Even so, it was still a very interesting story. That Oyashiro-sama's curse, which we thought of as strange, freak deaths, were really homicides perpetrated by the people of the village.
まあ常識的に考えればそうですよね。たたりなんかで人が死ぬはずない。誰かがたたりになぞらえて殺してるに決まってます。
そうね。それが誰なのかは研究しない方が無難ね。
高野さんは知ってそうですね。証拠はないまでも確信を持っているくらいには。
あら、どうしてそう思うのかしら？
I just kind of felt it vaguely. It didn't seem like her extreme passion for this research would calm down just because these things were taboo, or because it was safer and easier. This person loved walking through the profound, forbidden abyss of risks and taboos.
それくらいにしなよ、圭一君。せっかく助けてあげたのに、またお社様のたたりの話が始まっちゃうよ。涼しいうちに散策に行きたかったのにな。
Tomitaka-san seemed a little disappointed not to be able to go on the date he had planned since I brought up a weird topic. But right now, there was something I wanted to ask, just for a little bit. And that was about whether Satoko's uncle will be chosen for the curse this year. If he was, then another miracle would happen just like last year. A terrible incident would happen again. But it would release Satoko from her unfortunate circumstances once more.
まあもちろんおそらくあの辺りの人たちが関わってるんだろうな。鬼ヶ淵村の歴史を研究していれば自然と至る必然的結末。
それは誰です？
What would I do if I knew? I asked that question to the other me deep inside, but got no reply.
熱心ね。それを知ってどうするつもりかしら？
別に。
知ったらあなたにも危険が降りかかるかもしれないわよ。5年目のたたりはあなただったりして。
Takano-san, toying with Tabu, gave a devilish, satisfied smile, as though nothing in the world would be more amusing. She was probably trying to tease me, but I didn't feel like going along with her little game one bit.
偉そうな能書きでもったいぶってますが、高野さんだってよくは分かってないみたいじゃないですか。
I had felt a tinge of irritation at Takano-san's roundabout way of speaking, but those emotions escaped my mouth, like water flowing through a strainer. Even I was surprised at how directly I had spoken about what I felt. Of course, I wasn't the only one taken aback.
あら、言ってくれるわね。坊やなのに挑発までできるの？意外に野生的ね。嫌いじゃないわよ、そういうの。
Takano-san's tongue poked out of her mouth, and I was convinced that it was a long, thin split in the middle like a snake's.
ならいい、教えてあげてもよくってよ。でも教えてあげる前に3つ誓ってもらうわ。私が何を教えても後悔しない、口外しない。私が言ったなんて絶対言わない。
Oh god. I gulped firmly and nodded. Tomitaka-san made an exaggerated expression of distress, gave a dry, vague smile, and lit a cigarette.
教えてください。タタリを下しているのは、タタる相手を選んでいるのは誰なんです？
After I said that, I finally realized why I wanted to know. Many of my classmates were playing freely in the schoolyard. A few of them had just run out of the school building after putting on their shoes and tapping their toes to the ground. It looked like they had just finished eating lunch. From a time manipulating standpoint, I guess I succeeded.
前原さん、大丈夫なんですか？
A few girls noticed me and came running over. It was only natural they were worried. You would think if someone wasn't there in the morning, they would be out for the rest of the day.
まあその遅刻さ。
Dentist appointment, you know how it goes.
気にしないでくれ。それより、サトコはどうだ？今日は来てるか？
The girls exchanged glances. I saw a thin shadow fall over their faces and knew the answer without needing to hear them reply. Satoko was absent today too. When all was said and done, after being out 3 days, she had only come back for 1. And now she was out again. Who knew if she would come tomorrow?
でも、さとこちゃんから電話があったって先生言ってました。
風邪って言ってたよね。みんな家に帰ったらうがいをちゃんとしましょうって先生言ってました。
Wait a minute, Chia-sensei. That's a little too thick-headed, don't you think? You're a teacher, aren't you? Why can't you be more sensitive and catch on to the fact that your pupil is sending out an SOS? But even if she did, there was nothing we could hope for. The most she could do was a home visitation, She didn't have any right to take Satoko from her uncle into safety. No matter the result, it would end up just like the public agencies, with a wait-and-see attitude. It would just piss Satoko's uncle off, and her suffering would only grow deeper. Then, wasn't saying she had a cold the best option?
そうだな。みんなも風邪に気をつけろよ。もう行っていいぜ。昼休みはまだ長いぞ。
The girls excitedly scattered into the schoolyard. Rena was yelling out the classroom window, waving her hand. A moment later, Mion and Rika-chan poked their heads out too.
圭一までお休みしましたから、とても心配しましたのですよ。でもよかった。顔色もそんなに悪くないし、とりあえず元気そう。
I felt a little uncomfortable with her saying that I didn't look sick, but I didn't care that much.
どうしたの？寝坊？
遅刻は遅刻だろ。それとも電車の事故で遅刻したとでも言えば許してくれるのか？
寝坊？
Mion was being a bit persistent. Was she going to put on her club president cap and scold me for being late? Well, maybe she didn't have it in for me, so I briefly stated that she was right.
まだね、お弁当あるよ。みんなで食べよう。やっぱりね、圭一くんがいないと盛り上がらないよね。
聡子は休みなんだな。
Even Rena, feigning cheerfulness, couldn't stand to hear that, and her face darkened.
朝、電話があったらしいよ。風がぶり返したから、また休むってさ。長引くかもしれないって言ってた。かわいそうなので、みんなでお見舞いに行こうという話が出ていますのですよ。
何言ってんだよ、リカちゃん。
Not pleased with Rika-chan wearing a wide smile as though it was a happy occasion, I threw cold water on her.
聡子が風邪なんかじゃないことは俺たちが一番知ってるだろう。たとえ冗談でも二度とそういう白々しいことを言うな。次は怒るからな。
Rika-chan furrowed her brow, looking down, and mumbled an apology.
圭一くんだけじゃないよ。みんな辛いよ。
俺だけが悩んでるなんて思ってない。
But you wanna be the one worrying the most.
でもみんな何もできないのは本当だろ。
それはそうだけど。でも。
I got the feeling I would cause another fight if this exchange went on, so I apologized first.
ごめん、謝るから今の話は忘れてくれ。辛いのはみんなも同じだよな。
It was at least clear, however, that I wasn't the only one who had worried so much about rescuing her. At the very least, everyone else probably got the normal amount of sleep last night. Probably had good dreams too. They definitely hadn't stayed up all night thinking so desperately.
登校してきていきなりこんなこと聞いて、ケイちゃん、今日遅刻したよね。聡子が今日欠席したこととは関係ある？
は？ミオン、お前何の話してるんだ？
Just say no, you fucking idiot.
ケイちゃんはたまにちょっとつ盲信なところがあるからね。今朝、聡子と一緒にケイちゃんも休んだ時、聡子を家から連れ出してどこかにかくまったんじゃないかって本気で思った。
Easy for you to say. If I could have, I would have done that last night. None of them had really thought about how difficult that clear as day solution was. I was up all night, thinking until the night was brightening. And then, I concluded that I couldn't do anything of the sort.
バカかお前。人間一人かくまうなんてできるもんかよ。
そうだね。ごめん。気を悪くしたなら謝るよ。
別にいいよ。それより飯にしようぜ。腹が減ってんだ。
I took my bento box out of my bag. Everyone moved to make a spot for me to sit.
前原くん、今来たんですか？
And just as I was about to stick my chopsticks in, Chie-sensei came along.
あ、はい。遅刻してすみません。寝坊しまして。
The fuck? Even the teacher was giving me that strange look.
お弁当を食べたら、院長と前原くんは職員室に来てください。ちょっとお話がありますので。
Probably about Satoko, I thought. Sensei left it at that and went back into the hallway.
弁当を食うまでもないだろう。行こうぜ、ミオ。
そうだね。
Mion and I exchanged looks, nodded to each other, and got up.
さとこちゃんの話だろうね。
No doubt about it. They were saying she had a cold, but everyone in class knew the truth. I didn't think that wouldn't have reached Teach's ears by now. What? Bro.
僕がずっととぼけるので、僕に聞くのをやめたのでしょう。
Revealing the truth to the teacher would only worsen the situation. Was that why she hadn't said anything? Or was it because she was Satoko's friend and knew that she was trying to endure the trial of her uncle's abuse in order to get her brother to come home?
どうする？今のうちに私たちなりの統一見解を出した方がいいかもね。
リカちゃんはどうしたい？
Satoko's closest and best friend was Rika-chan. However much I pretended to be her Nini, it didn't come close to the amount of time they had spent together. So I felt like her opinion should be held in the highest regard.
俺は、サトコがどうしておじにいじめられてるのを耐えてるか知ってる。
Everyone looked startled and turned to me.
昔のサトコはいじめられるときっと泣きながら兄の背中に隠れてた。でも結局そのせいで兄が逃げてしまったんだとサトコは思ってる。
誰に聞いたのかな？
監督か。
I nodded quietly.
サトコはおじのいじめに耐えれば兄が帰ってくると信じることによって今を。でもそんな思い込みとサトシが帰ってくるのは全く無関係なことだ。サトコには悪いがそれが現実だ。
Everyone hung their heads. Everyone was thinking the same thing.
サトコは多分誰の助けも喜ばない。自分一人の力で耐え忍びたいと思ってる。でもそれを尊重してやるのが果たして正しいだろうか。俺は思わない。一時サトコに恨まれることになろうとサトコの意志に関わらず助けるべき時があると思う。俺はそれが今じゃないかと思ってる。
I told them all about what I saw and how I felt when I went to Satoko's house yesterday.
圭一君は話すべきだと思ってるってことだね。
もちろん公的機関への通報でサトコが保護されるのが確定してからだ。その確認のないうちはサトコをかえって危険にさらすこともありえるからな。
難しいね。先生との会話の中でその確約ってのが取れるわけ？
I had no confidence, but we had to try. Meanwhile, Rika-chan had her hand raised for a while, as if asking for an opportunity to speak.
圭一に任せますです。
いいのかいリカちゃん。
圭一はここにいる誰よりもサトコのことを考えていますです。その圭一が話すべき時だと判断したなら。
ありがとう。ミオンもレナもそれでいいか？
Mion seemed to hesitate, not knowing if she should agree. But when she saw Rena's firm nod, she made up her mind and did the same.
よし行くぞミオン。
Only Chie-sensei was in the teacher's lounge. We didn't see the principal anywhere. The schedule on the blackboard under the principal's name said training, going straight home. Our principal's sense of justice was too strong. Satoko's problems wouldn't be solved with something so vague. Maybe it was a stroke of good luck that he wasn't here. When the teacher saw Mion and I come in, she closed up her curry bento, saving the rest for later.
そこへおかけなさい。
She told us to take a seat in the chairs directly in front of the principal's seat. I hadn't sat in this chair since doing the paperwork for transferring in. The two of us sat there uncomfortably before the teacher walked over carrying a notebook and a ballpoint pen and sat in front of us.
前原くん、今日は午前中お休みでしたけど。
すみません、寝坊です。
本当に？
先生に嘘言っても。
She narrowed her eyes at me in suspicion. Now I was sure of it. She wanted to talk about Satoko.
まず、二人とも知ってると思いますけど、お友達の北条さんがここしばらくお休みしてますね。
Neither Mion nor I had anything to say in response, but the teacher proceeded, not minding.
何か知っていますか？クラスで良くない噂をしている人たちがいます。
Mion looked down and remained silent, as though she were being lectured. She sent me a quick glance. Everyone had made up their minds. They would be leaving things to me.
委員長、前原くんも先生は別に怒ってるんじゃありません。もしも知っていたら教えてほしいとお願いしているだけです。
先生、先にこっちから質問してもいいですか？
She must have not anticipated that response. She looked surprised.
クラス中で聡子のどんな噂が飛び交ってるかは知りませんが、仮にその噂が真実だったとして、先生はどうするつもりですか？
どうするもこうするも、その話が本当なら放っておけません。
放っておけないって、具体的にはどう放っておけないんですか？
Sensei's eyebrow shot up. Maybe I said it like I was trying to pick a fight.
前原くん、先生は真面目にお話ししてるんで。
先生こそ、俺はすごく真面目な話をして、まず答えてください。真実だったとして、どう放っておけないんです？
Sensei took a few breaths and then began to speak slowly.
まず状況を確かめるために北条さんの家を家庭訪問します。
おじに怒鳴りつけられて追い返されるかもしれませんね。まあいいや、仮におじと聡子に会えたとします。それで？
そして真意を聞きます。その事実が確認できたなら指導します。
指導って曖昧な言い方はやめてください。具体的には何をするんですか？
Even despite my tone being so provocative, Chie-sensei bit back her emotions and listened calmly. I thought then she was a good teacher. Chie-sensei really did have her students' best interests at heart. But she didn't have the power or the authority to save Satoko. If she let her sense of justice run away with her, the situation could get more complex. Sensei folded her arms, and for a few moments, she closed her eyes as though mentally concentrating. And when they opened again, there was a strictness in her eyes I had never seen before.
児童福祉法という法律があります。この法律で児童に対する虐待は何人に対しても認められていないことが明記されています。
らしいですね。それで？
沖宮の生活相談所へ通報します。さっき前原くんは追い返されると言いましたね。この相談所の職員は必要に応じて警察官を同行させることができます。恫喝には絶対に屈しません。
その福祉士というお役所の人は連絡して書類で申請して何日後に助けに来てくれるんです？
即日です。彼らの仕事は児童の安全を緊急に保護することですから。
知ってますよ。緊急性があると判断された場合ですよね。認められなかったら先生と同じ指導をして様子見をするんですよね。見てるだけ。聡子のおじの機嫌を悪くして聡子をその場に残したまま、それっきり。
ケイちゃん、ちょっと言い過ぎ。
嘘はついてないだろ。去年だか一昨年だかに児童相談所が来た時がまさにそうだったんだろう。その結果どうなった？俺よりもミオンや先生の方がよっぽどよく知ってるだろうが。
See, y'all should have never passed the ball to Keiichi. He stays fucking things up. I had said too much. I didn't need Mion to tell me that. I was talking crazy and itching for a fight. I was supposed to be telling her about the situation only after I was sure we could save Satoko, but I basically told her everything right from the start. Chie-sensei looked at the clock, stood up, and picked up the phone at the principal's seat.
もしもし、内線の3455をお願いします。いいの？ケイちゃん、本当に大丈夫かな？
It was too late. The die had already been cast. Now we could only pray.
お世話になっております。
Wait and see.
hinamizawa文庫教諭の知恵と申しますが、
指導室の渡辺主事はいらっしゃいますでしょうか。はい、ええ。ちょっと急用がございまして、至急校長と連絡が取りたいのですが、はい。お願いします。緊急とお伝えください。よろしくお願いします。
The teacher put down the phone and tilted her head back and took a breath, like I always did. What?
二人にもう一度だけ聞きます。クラスのみんなの噂は全て本当なんですね。
はい。俺は昨日聡子の家に行って実際にどういうことになっているのか見ました。
To be honest, you could have made the call yourself because you saw bruises on Satoko. That was enough.
あとは先生に任せてください。聡子ちゃんはきっと先生が何とかします。
なんとか？いい加減なことを言わないでください。
The fuck? What else are you trying to get from the situation, huh? She's trying to help.
なんとかじゃない。絶対でなければならない。
How? Load up the shotty and bring me my saber, bitch. How the fuck do you think?
もしもまた様子見なんてことになったら、先生はどう責任を取るつもりですか？
While I was yelling, the phone rang. Chie-sensei snatched the receiver up first.
もしもし。研修中申し訳ありません。はい。実は例の北条聡子さんの件でお話。はい。
Sensei waved us away, telling us we could leave now. Mian went to leave, but I held my ground. I'm an idiot. I had a responsibility to make sure she stopped saying such vague, ambiguous things. If it didn't look like she was going to say anything substantial, then I would tell them the truth, even if I had to steal the phone from her.
はい。いえ、まだ相談所には。はい。まだ確認はしていませんが、クラスのこの話では、相当なんてもんじゃないぞ。すぐにだ。今すぐ何とかしろ。
This fucking guy, bro.
通報するならどこへだっていい。でもな、もしも様子見なんてことになってみろ。ただじゃ済まさないからだ。
I yelled angrily at Sensei and the principal on the other end. I wanted to somehow, some way, convey to them just how dangerous her situation was right now.
それは分かっています。ちゃんと伝えますから。委員長、前原君を連れて教室に戻りなさい。
はい。行くよ、ケイちゃん。あとは先生たちに任せよ。
絶対だぞ。
Until the very last moment, I glared at Sensei. Chie-sensei was feeling pressured by the likes of me. Idiot. This isn't the time to feel pressured. Now's the time you give me a firm nod to reassure me. Who the fuck are you? Even so, we've already left things in her hands. At this point, we really can't do much but pray, wait and see. Bang. Mion shut the door to the teacher's lounge. This guy, Keiichi, might buy as a loose cannon at this point, man. Jesus Christ. He's a liability. Article 2, Definition of Child Abuse. The term child abuse means the following acts committed by a custodian, meaning a person who exercises parental authority, a guardian of a minor or other person who is currently engaged in the custody of a child. Hereinafter, the same shall apply. Against the child, meaning a person who is under 18 years of age. Hereinafter, the same shall apply. 1. Assault a child in a manner that will cause or is likely to cause external injury on the body of a child. 2. Engage in indecency against the child or cause the child to engage in indecency. 3. Substantially reduce the amount of food for the child or abandon and neglect the child for a long time period in a manner that may interfere with normal development of the child, mentally or physically, or otherwise materially fail to perform the duty of a custodian, or suck a dick, bro. Have you ever heard of a fucking period, bitch? 4. Speak or behave in a manner that will be significantly traumatic to the child. Article 3. Prohibition of child abuse. No person shall abuse a child. Law number, Act number 82 of 2000. Authored by the Minister of Health and Welfare. Principal abusers in cases reported to the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Total 5,352. Mother by blood 2,943, 55%. Mother not by blood 203, 3.8%. Father by blood 1,445, 27%. Father not by blood 488, 9.1%. Instances by type of abuse in cases reported to the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Total 5,352. Physical abuse 2,780, 51.9%. Neglect, abandonment of child 1,728, that's 32.3%. Psychological abuse 458, 8.6%. Forbidden from going to school 75, 1.4%. Sexual violence 311, 5.8%. It's fucked up. Anyway, we're gonna call it an episode right here. And next episode... Bro. What is this? This whole chapter is like fucking... It's leading towards Star Door 15, goddammit. Anyways, I'll see you guys next episode, man. I'm out of here. Love y'all, and deuces.